It's time for the View in Your Mirror podcast. I'm Katie Harms, and along with Lisa Rubin, we help you check in and curate the best possible you and the best view in your mirror. We share tips, tricks, and strategies from our 35 plus years in our respective industries. We talk about your day from morning to night and everything in between. We share our uniqueness, relish in our shared experiences. Along the way, we share conversation with fabulous people who give us their own thought-provoking insights. So come along as we help you hone the best view in your mirror.
I like how you did your makeup today.
Gee, I do it the same way every day.
No, it's a little more something up here.
Oh, you know what I did?
Jones Road, Miracle Ball.
You are incredible. Aren't you funny, Lisa?
No, but you think I am sometimes.
I absolutely think you're hysterical, but it's always mostly for me when you're not trying to be. I like to think I'm funny, but everyone tells me I'm not. And by everyone, I mean my family.
Well, my family for sure doesn't think I'm funny. Although one of the funniest things I've ever done with my son that I'll never forget because I haven't laughed that hard ever in my whole life was probably a menopause moment because it happened a while ago. But we were getting in my car and it was like wintertime, so it was dark like at 5:30. And I put my sunglasses on because, you do what,
Yep.
And we start driving. And I said, Noah, do you think it's unusually dark? And he looks at me and goes, wow, you have your sunglasses on. And that moment that I realized that, I started laughing so hard. I don't remember if we had to pull over because I was driving. But when there's bad days, I remember that moment because that feeling of laughing like that is so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Thank God I was sitting because I probably would have wet my pants. So it's a whole menopause thing too.
It is, but have you noticed a difference in that with estrogen?
Sort of. But I'm only doing the patches. I'm not doing
the cream?
the vaginal cream too.
Why?
I don't know. I probably will. I just don't think about it. It's stupid. I know. I know.
An alarm
like that. I just need to.
I have noticed a difference with frequency of urination.
Oh,
Boy,
really?
We are all over the place. Yes, absolutely. It's gotten better. But don't you think that that's something that's probably worth talking about?
Well, women don't like to talk about it, but yeah.
Well, Claude and I are getting very close.
Very close.
Strangely close.
Yes. No.
For those of you who are not aware of what we're talking about, Claude AI is a AI
platform
that
you use on a regular.
So
does Claude know you're using vaginal cream? This was funny.
Are definitely just funny. Oh my God. Okay. I don't think I've mentioned that.
You're right.
As an adult person diagnosed with ADHD recently, I think that for people in that place, actually the psychiatrist that I was talking to about this confirmed that AI has been incredibly helpful for people experiencing this diagnosis. It helps me arrange things and be a little bit more organized. I know it's hard to imagine that I'm not organized.
No, you are organized about different things, but they don't stay organized for the same period of time.
Well, yes. Well, I would say if you're talking about my house, if you're talking about my closets, if you're talking about all of that, if you're talking about my car, my strategies are I'm very organized in all of those areas. Where it's disorganized is in my brain, right? I heard it talked about, masking and how to quiet your brain. And I'm like, quieting my brain? I haven't had a brain quiet for my entire life. So Claude has helped me be able to offload some of the stuff in my brain and come back to it. Does that make sense?
That's very good. Yeah. Now that we've gone over lots of things.
And we probably should talk about our guests because I'm super excited. But before we do that, we should talk about
our sponsor.
Yes, our presenting sponsor.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our sponsor.
Okay.
I have been to Restico quite frequently in the last week. I'm now into a certain scone, and it's the passion fruit strawberry scone, which I've never in my whole life had. But here was the problem. They stopped making the pistachio cookie that they said they weren't going to stop making. I had a bit of a meltdown when I went to the counter because I was having a craving, and that's what I went in for. That's how it started. But then I got this scone, and I've had it 3 times.
And you've forgotten about the pistachio cookie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rustica Bakery, 4 locations. Bidet Marcasca is their original. Then they added Edina at Southdale Mall.
Really?
Downtown Minneapolis, I think, was next. And Wayzata was 4th.
I've been to 3 of the 4.
Yeah. We got to show downtown Minneapolis some love.
We do. Well, we're going for your birthday that we haven't gone yet.
We're now 2 months past my birthday month.
We are not 2 months.
Okay. Well,
We
my
are
birthday's in June.
at the end of June.
We're
It's been
pushed.
1 month.
All right, fine.
Don't make me feel bad.
Oh gosh, that wasn't meant to make you feel bad. It was more to the point that we have so many other things that we can do and celebrate. And
Can I add one more
I
thing
only
about
have
a sponsor?
350 more days till my next birthday. We can wait and celebrate then.
No, we're going to do it before. But can I say one more thing about our other sponsor, Sweet Ivy?
Yeah. But then we're going to do all 3 of the sponsors at the beginning. So
This is the beginning.
Right.
Go.
go. I'm so confused.
Okay, go. Just to let everybody know, it is 100 degrees everywhere in this country. And to think about fall is mind-blowing. It's going to come in the next couple months. And I want to give everyone a little secret, is fall merchandise is going to start flowing in the stores in another couple weeks.
Do you think it's going to be a better fall than it was last year? Or a better fall than it was this spring?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a little more conservative. There's going to be a lot of stripes and polka dots.
Okay.
If you're a stripe and polka dot person. But the colors are going to be colors that everybody will find a color they like. Burgundies, navies, olive greens, those type of colors. But I know that Sweet Ivy buy for fall, because I have previewed some of it, is phenomenal.
Fun.
And so I want everyone to know, as soon as we get that little cold snap, go into Sweet Ivy.
Fantastic. Their website. Is this a shop?
I don't know.
Yeah,
'Cause if you're listening to
Yes.
this outside of Minnesota, you can purchase anything
absolutely.
online.
Sweet Ivy in the Galleria in Minnesota, if you happen to be here.
Great store.
Lastly, we want to throw a little love out to Beam Light Therapy. And not at all. I could use Beam Light Therapy. I had a little bit of a accident yesterday, a little bit of a snafu, all my own fault. I had another car in a parking lot, and I just think that the stress of it when it happened jarred my shoulders, and I need to go get some
And
red
your
light
camera
therapy.
didn't say, that makes so
Oh,
much noise.
Lisa, you would have to ask that question, wouldn't you? No, because
You turned off that noise?
I didn't turn off that noise. I think I was going so fast that it concurrently happened with the impact. Listen, I am not a perfect person. I was not going that. It's not like I was not up on 2 wheels.
It was 100 degrees yesterday.
It was, yes, it was unfortunate. It was very
Our
unfortunate.
shoulders did,
I
but
literally had to go find the person whose car was parked in the parking spot that I took too close of a turn getting into, that they just don't make cars like they used to. Let me just say that. All right. Moving on. We have Miss Shannan Paul on with us.
I know, and I'm excited to laugh.
Right? And I think we've been doing a fairly good job leading up to it.
Laughing.
Laughing. Yes, yes. Shannan Paul is a Minneapolis-based comedian, keynote speaker, event MC, and benefit auctioneer who has spent her career doing one thing exceptionally well, walking into a room full of strangers and making them feel like they've known each other for years. Named Best Stand-Up Comedian by City Pages and a top speaker pick by Campus Activities magazine, she's performed at SXXW, that's a mouthful, appeared on Nick Mom's Night Out, Hulu, and Laughs TV, and is a familiar voice across Twin Cities media, including My Talk 107.1 and WCCO Radio. She's shared stages with Louis Anderson, Sinbad, and Christopher Kidd Reed. Her speaking work lives at the intersection of comedy, leadership, and authenticity, helping audiences tackle imposter syndrome, claim their expertise, and take themselves seriously without taking themselves too seriously. She's also the author of the upcoming book, Standing in Your Spotlight, Taking Center Stage in Your Life. And now, as if that's not enough, I'm trying to figure out how she does all this. She's bringing her voice to the screen. Her 6-episode streaming comedy and wellness series, Comedy Through Chaos, blends stand-up with real-life storytelling on grief, parenting, burnout, identity, and what she calls financial face plants. Whether she's delivering a keynote, running a gala, or raising money for a nonprofit live on stage, Shannan's through line is always the same. When people feel comfortable, inspired, and seen, the whole room gets better.
That's true.
So let's welcome Miss Shannan Paul. All right, it is asking me to unmute. Oh, no. We have Miss Shannan Paul in the house, and I'm having technology issues only in my own mind, Lisa.
I'm glad they're in just your mind and not mine.
Just in my mind. We have been waiting to get this incredible woman, you, Miss Shannan Paul, on for quite a while. For anyone who doesn't know you, which feels impossible in the Twin Cities, give us the 30-second version of who you are.
By trade, I'm a multidimensional event leader. I focus in the areas of being a stand-up comedian, a corporate speaker, a voice actor, an event MC, and a benefit auctioneer. By heart, I'm the proud parent of an adorable 18-year-old kiddo who happens to be high supports on the autism spectrum. So I have a variety of things that keep me busy. And so it's usually in some of those buckets.
You are a force, but you are a bright, shining light. And you are also, I think you're a champion of women, particularly in this community, in your Black community for sure, but in the community. And so what does it actually mean when you champion other women? When you come on platforms like this and when you just do what you do and champion others, you actually go more than championing other women. I could make this a really multidimensional question for a multidimensional guest.
I think my perspective on it is there were a variety of doors that may have been closed when I got to them. And I may have worked on getting those doors to open. And instead of going, I'm going to close the door behind me, I want to make sure that I'm leaving it as wide open as possible so that it's not as difficult for other people to come through. And I don't think that that was always, especially if you're in this whole Gen X bucket, it was a lot more of what I like to call this Highlander mentality. Highlander was a sci-fi movie that came out ages ago. But in the movie Highlander, what happened was there were these characters that basically had to slowly battle each other because there could only be one. And I think that they've tricked us into thinking that, especially Gen X women, is that there was only enough seats for one person. And so if you got that seat, then everybody else didn't get a slot. And I'm like, no, there should just be more seats. There shouldn't be only one. It created this competition between all of the women instead of being able to say that we can work together or we do better together or we have a commonality. It was this, nah, you're already here, so nobody else has a space. And if you let them grow, that means that they'll just kick you out of the position that you're in. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I'm more inclined to go, how can we build coalitions and how can we find spaces for more people to exist and thrive? Because I think that's better for everybody. The more people are happy and satisfied and taken care of and just well, the better we all do.
And I think that that's happening a little bit more and more every day. I think we're seeing more collaboration with groups of women. And when they do collaborate together, it's very powerful.
Exactly. And it just wasn't, encouraged or fostered before. I don't know if the two of you had this for a while. I can remember, just because, I've always been into sports and comic books and nerd stuff and things like that, that it was, oh, well, all your friends must be guys. And it was almost like this weird badge of honor to say that, oh, women don't like me, or most women don't like me, or they don't find me X, Y, and Z. It was, oh, most of my friends are guys. And it took me a while to let it sink in. It's like, no, I'll just find other women that are into these things. Just there's a different vibe altogether. And just because you're passionate about certain things doesn't mean that it has to be male or female. It can just be you. And there's other people that are into it too. And that, I think, has been a very freeing thing for me to go, no, I like being in the company of women and being able to bounce things off of them and have that commonality there. It's like, no harm, no foul on dudes. Dudes are fine, but they can start their own clubs. I got you. They did it for centuries. Their clubs have been doing fine. They don't need me to boost all their clubs too.
That's true. It's interesting as I think about it. I spent so much of my life working in very male-dominated industries. And I think relating better because I'm so straightforward in my approach to things. And it took me a long time. Plus, I was this height at 13 years old, and this height being just shy of 6 feet tall. And so a little bit of a standout and I would say a misfit. And so it took me a long time with women, honestly, to find a group of women that I felt truly I could be myself with. And I feel like for us baby boomers, maybe it was harder to stand out or to be that individual. Love what you're saying because it reframes it for me yet once again that I just need to find my people. And sometimes that doesn't happen until you're a little older.
Right. And I think sometimes it's that we're kind of trained to think that your people don't exist. And so you get stuck in this, I'm always going to be the outsider, because lots of spaces are set up to be mass liked. So I think even the men in those groups may have felt like outsiders. It was just easier for them to go ahead and blend into whatever the norm or whatever the expectation was. And because the expectation was be this, fit in this box. And so if you're even any sort of shape that's slightly outside that box, then you're just going to think you don't fit. Instead of us all going, well, all these boxes are manufactured and created. And so none of us are going to be all of the same. And so I think it takes time for you to go, well, no, maybe I have different friend groups, or one friend group doesn't have to fulfill every single thing that I need. One job doesn't, one group, but there's lots of different ways that all of the things that you need can get fulfilled. And I think that's okay. I have friends that I play Dungeons and Dragons with that have no idea about when I'm going to go play sports. And then I have other friends that I'm like, oh, these are the friends I go play pickleball with. And sometimes there's overlap, sometimes there's not, but that doesn't mean that they're not all great friends, or that I'm so weird because I like playing Dungeons and Dragons, but also want to go play pickleball.
You're developing way more of your mind than most. All the different pieces and all the different parts.
Well, isn't there a bunch of studies that say that it helps keep you young? Aren't you supposed to keep moving, and
yes,
as much as you can? And I think that it's always fun to learn things and know things. So, people go, how come you know what random X, Y, and Z fact? Just because I read an article about it. And if you read one article about it, then your algorithm will give you 6 more articles about it. So if you want to talk about stuff like, I don't know, cat hydration, I know a weird collection of stuff on cat hydration, because I looked up I was like, what does a cat like to drink out of this faucet? And now I'm like, now I know, I know the science, but what? But I think that's just life. It's just being curious. And sometimes it's difficult to lean into your curiosity because you're worried that people will think you're dumb because you don't know stuff. So you just
Exactly.
Yeah. So you just press on and go, oh, I'll just fake it like I know all this stuff, instead of going, no, I am continually trying to learn stuff. And I say things wrong. I mispronounce words, stuff all the time, because I'm like, I don't know, but I will learn and we'll figure it out. And then I'm like, oh, another interesting thing to go into the little bucket of stuff that like I was telling before we started that I'm going to start playing with a 3D printer. Not because I'm like, oh, this is going to be my new, hey, I'm going to start 3D printing all this stuff and that's going to be my new merchandise. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it really is. Well, I hear people talk about it. I could see how that could benefit me and my kiddo, kind of thing. If there's certain things that I would be able to print for him that he might find interesting or entertaining. And that is worth learning. And how bad can it go? Like if I make something and it turns out to be a little 3D printed mess, oh, well, whatever, I'll try again. So I think that is what I encourage people to do all the time is just try. If you're like, oh, I can't cook, try. How bad? Just don't burn your house down. But if you make a couple of things that come out gross, then you made a couple of things that come out gross and you try something else.
It's so interesting too when I think about just spending time with my grandkids and the difference from one to the other in their capacity to go back and try more things or
Right.
to just and a lot of times they don't even realize they're doing it or
Right.
they're trying a different way. So you watch it and you go, okay, that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling them they can't do it. So they're trying a different approach or they're trying a different way. Or at times they're saying, well, I can't do that. Well, of course you can't. You've never done it before. That's the first time doing it. So let's
Right.
try 252 more times. Then
Right.
eventually you're going to be proficient at it.
I remember my son's 18 now, but I remember when he was little like that. He would do that even to his own self-detriment. Like I would watch him, I watched him one day, he was trying to stand on some chair that he didn't need to be standing on. And it failed and he fell. And I'm like, okay. And so maybe he'll learn that he doesn't need to stand on this chair. No, his approach was, I just didn't stand on it right. Let me try it again. And I'm like, but I think that it doesn't count as failure. I'll try it again and come back at it. I think that there's some real joy in being able to do that. And, I've had to learn how to do that and not have everything count as a failure. It counts as you tried. And so try again.
And then the fear factor comes in, right?
Mhm.
Like as adults and as we get older, there's things that we've already set up that we fear,
Mm-hmm.
and that stops you completely, right?
Right.
Or it stops me. So
Yeah.
I am trying to catch myself unless I'm going to get hurt or something like that to
Right.
say, okay, Lisa, stop it. And then try.
Try. And
So
I think the fear is so important because there's lots of ways that the fear manifests itself because it's not always physical. It's also, are people going to like me? Am I going to be accepted? Are they going to think ill of me? Is this going to ruin my reputation? All of those things are part of that fear bucket as well that keeps you from not trying or worried about what the outcome will be to the point that you can't even get started. And that's, hard for everybody because, as we start, as we were saying before, feeling like you fit in or feeling like you're part of a community or if you want to use the word tribe is really important, for us as humans. And so I think a lot of people, that fear is just as powerful. It's like, well, if I step out and I do all these other things, something's going to do that isolates me. And so I'm not going to take that next step.
Yeah.
So coming back to all of that, when did you find out, at what age or when, that you were funny or that you were going to use humor to build a career?
That's two different questions.
I know it is.
Yeah. I kind of want to say I've always been funny for a variety of different reasons. So I think part of it was back to the what can you do to fit in, stand out, have people like you. For me, it was being the smart, funny one. There was that because it wasn't, I was in a group where sometimes I was the only, Black girl in this honors class or in this, my mom really worked hard, raised by a single mom, but worked really hard to make sure that I had the opportunities to, be good academically. And that was something that was important to me and was important to her. But that sometimes would be very isolating because you're already a nerd and people are already looking at you like, why are you a nerd? Why are you reading all these books? But it helped to be the funny one, and it helped to be the one that was helpful and engaging and those kind of things. And it also can be really tiring, and you don't even know how tiring it is when you're a little kid, when you're a teenager or any of those things. But it wasn't until college even that I really thought that it would be a career. And I didn't even organically think it was going to be a career. It was more of a, people had told me I was funny before. And I would just kind of yada yada past it because, we're also not great at taking compliments. And I've gotten better at it, but I was terrible at it when I was younger. And I wouldn't say no, but I just was always deflecting into why it wasn't something that was a career. It was in that bucket of just something that I did, or just something I did in front of friends or for family. And I'm writing a book. My friend Michael Libby's in the book because I always said he was going to be in a book when I wrote a book. And it was my friend Michael Libby. That was before I worked in radio or or in comedy, or at least anything that was front facing performance wise. And he and I used to go to this comedy club in the Twin Cities all the time. And that was back when we were just broke enough that we're like, hey, if there's 2-for-1s, we're going to go where the 2-for-1s are, the 2-for-1s. And so we'd go all the time and we'd hang out. And one day after an open mic at this comedy club, he's like, well, you're funny. You should do that. And I said the same thing that I had said a lot, which was, well, I'm not funny like that. I just tell stories. And he's said at that time, he goes, well, what do you think they're doing? Just figure out how to make your stories into jokes. And people have said that to me in other ways or similar, and it just never landed. And so it was just, Michael said it in just the right way, and I was in just the right position to kind of receive it at the time, that I'm like, oh, well, maybe I could do this as a thing. And so I changed my methodology. Instead of writing, I was a writer first, so instead of writing hoping that someday somebody else would perform my material, I wrote a comedy set for a college writing class that I was in and had to tell it in class. And I told the jokes. It was 4 minutes of jokes to get full credit, and I didn't die. And so it was awkward, but I didn't die. Because nobody in the class, this college class, was doing stand-up sets. They're all doing the other stuff that we were going to do. And so I rewrote it so that it could fit into the 3-minute set that you needed to do at this open mic. And I went and tried it. And again, didn't die. Didn't crush it. It wasn't like this miracle thing. Did well, did okay. It was like, okay, I could come back here again. And then just kept coming back and figured out how to keep showing up. Even on days when you're just like, oh my gosh, that bombed. That was whack. And what am I going to do next? And just figured out how to keep coming back. And now it's been, I don't know, 25 years, 30 years, maybe. It's been a long time.
That's awesome. Okay.
Long enough that I stopped doing the math, Katie and Lisa.
We know that. We were actually trying to do some math earlier on how long we had known each other and when we built. Yeah. What's the hardest room you think you've ever had to win over?
The hardest room I've ever had to win over.
And do you look at it that way? Is it like, okay, I'm going in there and I'm going to crush this room, or I'm going to like, how do you look at it when you're walking on stage?
I think that now I look at it a lot differently, because I understand that sometimes it's a business and it's your job just to get up there and do your time, be consistent, and work with the crowd that you have. I think the hardest room, back when I was also a radio DJ and I was doing my stand-up, I'd open for some bigger names. And it's not that I wasn't funny. It's just the expectation, if you're opening for like the Kings of Comedy or something like that, is really high. And a certain audience are just like not there to see you. And that's the hard part, is that the way that it works, there's usually people who are there to warm up the crowd for whoever the headliner is. And some people are just like, it doesn't matter what you do. They did not come to see you, and they just want you to get out of the way. And so that's the hardest thing, is to figure out how to get those audiences to give you enough time to go, no, I'm funny too. That's what I'm trying to do, is build and show I could do it. I mean, there was one time where I was just doing a little bit of time at the opening of like a Cedric the Entertainer concert years ago. Show. And I came out on stage, and somebody in the crowd literally was like, "We love you, Miss Shannan." Boo. And I hadn't even said a joke. I hadn't said anything. They just did not come to see me. And that really taught me to go, okay, it's not always about you, but you still have to do the gig. You still have to figure out how to do the job, and how do you get their attention, and how do you make them go, all right, I get it. I'm gonna do this anyway. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things to figure out when you're a performer is to allow yourself to feel when you don't when you know things didn't go well, but also not get blown up too much when things go well. And that's hard, like living in that middle space of being, because otherwise it just rocks your confidence if it's, because every show's different, every audience is different. And so you have to kind of go, well, here's the space that I live in, and be able to bounce back and forth between those things. Otherwise, it's mentally exhausting, like rolling up and down like that all the time.
Well, and there has to be. You really, when you think about it and you boil it down to intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, you really have to be intrinsically ilked in
Yeah.
order to be able to keep going when you're not getting that external validation for things you're doing.
Right. And I tell, people who are starting and want to do comedy that a lot of it at the beginning is really, why are you here, and why do you, and why are you using your voice, and what do you do? Because there'll be years where you're probably not making any money. And then even when you do start making money, you're breaking even. Like there's a lot of those years where I was like breaking even, and you're losing sleep, and you're hanging out in questionable locations and doing all this stuff, and and you're working really hard. Sometimes there's people who are working really hard, and you're working for something where, like, even the funniest of us, a lot of times people will come up to me and they go, oh yeah, I saw this comedian at X, Y, and Z Comedy Club, and it's a club I'm familiar with. And I go, oh, well, who do you see? And they can't remember their name, but they can remember their material. And I know people have done that to me, kind of thing, where they're like, oh yeah, she told this joke about X, or she, said this story about Y, or she looked like this. And they can't remember my name though. And that's a lot of performances, so everybody can't be Angelina Jolie, but where they remember that your name is Angelina Jolie. A lot of us, they just remember the way that you made them feel. And that got to the point where I'm like, all right, I can, the people who really like me. And I can't be everything to everybody, but I can do this, and I can get this audience, and I can build that following. And that's been what really got me through the latter part, or this part of my career.
It's interesting as you're talking about this. I'm thinking, what are the applicable things that carry into all sorts of scopes of careers for people, right?
Mhm.
And my husband and I spent part of the weekend at the 3M Open, the
Yes.
golf tournament. And, the field starts out with, I don't know, hundreds of players. And then it's, 100 players or something like that. And guys that have never had the shot. And they're already have gotten to this point that they're even at a tournament of this size that's building every year, and quite fun if you haven't ever done it. But
Mhm.
these guys are just hoping for a shot, and they're going to get that shot based on how they play against how many other people to get to this. So you're constantly trying to cut the levels so that you're closer and closer and closer. And I think about, for you, okay, in just this part of your career, because your career is so much more than just a comedian,
Right.
but in just this part of your career, how many comedy clubs and how many people who are trying to do this, that you're then trying to build yourself against others, all while fighting your internal, how good am I?
Okay, I'm gonna.
What did I just ask you is the
Yeah,
real
I
question.
think I can unspool that. So I think one of the things that you asked me is, I'm glad you brought up a golf analogy, because stand-up comedy, not comedy in general, but stand-up comedy is very much like golf, because if you do poorly, there's nobody to kick at except for you. And it is a matter of reps, and how do you keep yourself mentally strong. And so all of those things are relatable to what you said about golf. And then it's also a matter of being competitive from the perspective of, I want to be the best that I can be. Because if you get stuck in that, I'm competing with X, Y, and Z person, then you get mired down too. It really has to be, I need to figure out, what can I do to stand out? What can I do to bring value? What do I need to learn how the business of the business works so that I can get booked, versus spending time going, well, I'm funnier than so-and-so. Maybe you are, maybe you are. Like, I'll be honest, there's some people who I know are intrinsically funnier than I am, but they're not as good at the business of what we do. So the building the relationships, the staying in touch with bookers, the being consistent, when we were first starting out, when you're trying to get somebody to take you with you on the road, it's like, are you consistent and a good hang? Kind of thing. Like, are you too much work? That's all that stuff gets put into the bucket of being a performer. Are you preemptively a diva? Are you new here, but you already think you should have this, that, and other thing? And you're allowed to think all of those things about yourself. You can, however you fuel yourself is how you fuel yourself. But that may not be the best business move all of the time. And so a lot of that gets stuck into the bucket, I think, as well. You might be the funniest person that goes to this particular open mic, but if you haven't spent the time to get a decent videotape of yourself so you can send it to other people, then maybe it's not going to work. And that's hard, when you really just want to focus on being funny and telling stand-up and telling jokes and doing that. Knowing that there's also a business of it. I think it's similar. A friend of mine who's a voice actor as well. She did a workshop on the business of voice acting, because it's another thing. You may have a great voice, and everybody, people may tell you every time they pass you and they talk to you in the grocery store, oh my gosh, you have a wonderful voice. Do you do commercials? Are you on the radio? Are you this? Maybe you get that all the time. Maybe people think you have a great voice. But if you can't do the business of being a voice actor, what does the auditioning process works like? Have you set up your equipment? What did you do to get an agent or set up your website? The business of it. Do you study? Because a lot of people who think that they'd be really good voice actors have never really practiced reading aloud, and they're not good actors. All these things happen in the way that you can actually build these things into a career. And that, I think, is the difficult part for all of these things. And back to what you were saying, and how do we put this in a perspective that other people can use this in where they're at? There probably are people that you work with that you're like, I know I work harder than Tim, and Tim seems to get all of the opportunities. And it might just be, yes, maybe there's some things in the background, some nepotism, this all stuff. It might just be the way that Tim shows up in the space, though, too, because Tim probably isn't worried about whether you're doing a better job than he is. Tim's just doing Tim. And so you have to figure out how to make sure that you show up and you get the attention that you need so that you can move forward, and then figure out what all of those things that are being held against you are, and then you dismantle those. And nobody can make sure that we're going to bring it all back to golf. Nobody's going to make sure that you keep your head down when it's time to swing, except for you. And so if you top it, then you topped it. You can't get mad at, maybe a seagull shouted in the background and it scared you and it made you top it. But usually that's your job, is to keep your head down, and figure out how you do it.
That was perfect.
That's an awesome analogy.
Thank you.
For every level.
Wow,
every level.
That is great. I
Thank
love
you.
that.
Which also shows how masterful you are at reading the crowd. In this case, it's a crowd of two.
Yeah, a question I have too, though, is, when you're doing your stand-up or you're doing whatever you're doing where there is a crowd in front of you,
Yes.
do you feel like you're good at, you have it all in your head, or you have it written down, or however you're going to do it that day, but if you sense that you need to change it up, do you feel like you have the ability now to do that quickly?
I do now. I can do a couple of things more quickly than I used to. I can turn a bit from an idea to I can take it to stage a lot quicker than I did when I first started, because I know my voice. I know why I think something's funny. I know how I present it to the audience, because there's only so many things to talk about. So it's like, if you're going to talk about something, There needs to be your particular stamp on it. So I can do that more quickly. But I also can, back to what you said about reading the room, that's what I think a lot of us have to get good at, is that it is continual group biometric readings. It's continually looking at a room and going, what nonverbals are they giving out? What do they seem to be resonating with? Is there like this weird kind of fog in the room that I have to, poke through? Is that to poke through it? Is it I get loud and I put more energy, or am I overwhelming them? So I need to moderate my energy and bring it back down and deliver it in a little softer tone. And I think that helps a lot, because it does depend on the group. There's some people that I think I call them emotions on the inside people. Like, they just smile on the inside. They don't overtly do anything, but that doesn't mean they're not having a good time, but they're very difficult to read. But they'll come up to you after a show and say, you were so great. And you're looking at them like, you didn't laugh out loud once, or every time you just smiled and nodded at me. And I think one of the running jokes is we call those people that I don't want to interrupt you with my laughter people. It's what they are. So, but that's, there's people that's how they express, is that. But that doesn't mean they didn't have a good time. But if you're only able to fuel yourself, or only able to be in a situation that's high energy, then you're like, well, that was awful. That sucked, and that took some time and some practice for me now. And but that's also why, just to be able to be in different spaces and moderate my particular emotions, that's part of the reason why I've slowly over the years, yes, I'm a comedian first. That's the first thing that you see on my business cards and everything. But that's why I'm also a storyteller, because when you're a storyteller, or at least a professional storyteller, I'm always going to be a humorous storyteller, and so I'm going to get back to funny, but you can hit a bunch of other emotional beats in there because the expectation is different. When you're doing a keynote, being a really funny corporate speaker, that's a different expectation. And real talk, the expectation for how funny you need to be considered a funny corporate speaker is much lower than how funny I need to be as a comedian. Like, if you come into a comedy club, they're like, this lady better bring bangers. Come on. I didn't come here to have her do all that stuff. But if I'm doing a keynote, then the level of hilarity, because it's wrapped around something that could have been really dry, or they've seen presented really dry before, or they had to get there because they need some continuing education credits or something, or they're at a conference and it's just been all numbers. And then if you come in with a keynote that's memorable, that's engaging, that gives them information, and you're funny, they're like, oh, thank goodness for this person. But that's because the expectation is so much different.
Note to anyone who's out there looking to hire people,
Yes.
you will be considered brilliant to bring in Miss Shannan Paul. I love what you said about continual group biometric feedback, which also, changing gears a little bit, sounds like parenting in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about navigating life with an exceptional child.
Okay. He is exceptional. I'm impressed.
I have
that
one
he
more
hasn't
thing to add to what you said, though.
Oh,
and
yes,
then we'll
Lisa.
go back to that. On a much smaller scale, I'm not the keynote, but I do like corporate seminars for
Right.
executive presence. And when I'm listening to you, what you have to say, anytime I walk into the room, especially with a group of women, everyone is nervous, right?
Mhm.
Because they're worried that I'm going to basically say what they're wearing is inappropriate, right?
Right.
That's what's in everyone's mind. I am actually not funny. Katie thinks I'm funny, but I'm not funny. But I have found that if I use humor and I'm self-deprecating about myself to start, I get everyone's attention in the room.
I want to pause you, Lisa. Why do you say you're not funny?
Well,
Thank you, Miss Shannan.
Yeah, so
Here
why
we
do you
go,
say
Lisa.
you're not
generally a very serious person,
Mhm.
and I worry a lot, and I'm always thinking, I'm overthinking, and so I forget to be funny.
But funny, first of all, funny one of the worst things you can do is always strive to be funny. That, being funny doesn't always, thinking like, I can go through my Bumble profile right now and let you look at a bunch of people that think they're funny. And when we talk to them, they're not going to be funny. They're not going to be funny. So that's not necessarily the way that it comes, that it comes to you, is that. But I also want to just kind of look at a couple of things you just said, Lisa. So you worry a lot. Lots of us worry. I like to help people reframe worry. But the other thing is, you say you do all these serious things. And some of the best advice I got before is just the way that we frame things and we look at our life. And the way that we all do, a director friend of mine had brought this up, is that we all get to decide whether our lives are comedies or tragedies, because they're going to have the same beats. We all have comedic beats in our storylines. We all have tragic beats in our storylines. And so it's just a matter of what you choose to focus on. I choose to focus on the comedy, but that doesn't mean that I don't have serious thoughts, that I don't have tragic things that have happened to me. But being able to balance out the other things, like the fact that Katie's saying that she thinks you're funny, that means that you have said funny things, is she's focusing on the funny things that you've said. But the funny things also make the serious things either more impactful, makes them more impactful, because you have to be able to compare the two things to each other. But the serious things also make the funnier things funnier, because you have to have those both. You can't live in any bucket permanently. It'd be insane for anybody to think that every moment of my life is funny. There's been times where I had to go do a comedy show. Like, one of the hardest shows I ever did, this was a few years ago. It was after I'd gotten divorced. And so my son at that time wasn't with me full time. He was going back and forth to his father's house periodically. And this was a Valentine's Day show. It was counter programming to Valentine's Day. So it was like, it was me and two other divorcees that were doing a show. That kind of thing. So it wasn't all about love. It was about all the things. So you could get some jaded divorcee thing. And I was headlining. And that day, my beloved cat that I had had for 25 years decided that she was going to take her last walks. And so I'm dealing with that throughout the day, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, what's going to go on. My ex had come and picked up our son, and I'm trying to figure this out. So I was able to get a hold of Min Pets, because we're in Minnesota, Min Pets, and they were going to come to the house, and they were going to help make sure that she was able to pass gently and peacefully and all that. But they weren't able to get there until later in the day, when I needed to kind of leave. And so I called my mom. My mom doesn't live that far from me, and she came over to help out. And so, we're talking to the person from Min Pets that came over, the veterinarian came over. I'm trying to see how this navigates. Because again, this cat predated my kid, my relationship with my husband. Basically I moved to Minnesota, got this kitten, and the cat had been with me ever since. And so my mom says, just go to your show. I don't need you crying and then crashing your car on the way to the show. And so because you can't call in, my cat is passing to a comedy show that your name's on the poster. You can barely call in and say you got COVID, kind of thing. You can't call in and say you're not coming. They don't care. And you certainly can't call in sad. So I go to this show. I'm getting my act together. I do my set. I was actually very proud of the set because there was a bunch of tech issues. You talked about tech issues. The mic went out partway through my show. And so I just had to kind of power through. And thankfully, I'm very good at projecting. And I did used to do theater. So I'm like, look, it wasn't the kind of club where they were going to run up there and replace the mic. I just kind of went, look, we got another, at this point, 30 minutes I'm supposed to talk. Can you guys hear me enough? And I'll just do it like we're doing theater in the round. And they said yes. And I did the rest of my set. And I got in the car and I came home to an absolutely quiet house for the first time in 25 years. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And there's been other moments like that where we've had friends in our comedy community pass and all of these things. And I remind people, and somebody that had come to the show has said, it's just weird to see all you comedians sad. And so this ties back to what you're saying, Lisa. Just because we're funny doesn't mean we're always happy. And so just because you have worry in your life doesn't mean that you're not funny or you won't have funny things in your life. And you need to be able to focus on those as much as possible, because otherwise it ties back into the fear that we talked about, because our brain will anchor to the fear because the fear is protecting. And it's good to remind yourself that, hey, if I went behind that rock, there was a snake, don't go again. But your brain won't, from a neuroplasticity thing, go back to the funny things until you start saying, you know, I am funny. I'm not funny every minute, but I am funny, because then you can anchor those happy moments so you can pull back to them as well. And the more you do that, the funnier you'll get, because you'll stop being worried that everybody thinks you're not funny. Because
And
you
of
are
course,
you are
our
funny.
families don't think we're funny because we are mostly serious with them.
Yeah.
Like,
That
in a
was
weird
a
way.
very good therapy session.
That was an incredible therapy session. I mean,
You're welcome.
And I'm the one that takes advice very well, right, Katie?
well, that goes along with the funny.
That's fair. That's been part of my evolution as a comedian, a performer, is like, well, what do you want to do with your voice? You know, back to your original conversation about, you know, what do I consider myself as far as championing other people? That's part of it, is going, no, you are better at this than you think. And why are you minimizing yourself for it? And you don't have to compare yourself against all of the other professional performers to decide whether you're funny or not. And you don't have to go, well, if I'm only good at being funny, that means that I can't be worried. The life is hard, and the world is full of trash right now, all the time. And I think that the being funny not only diffuses the situations that you walked into, Lisa, where you're saying, okay, people, I call it what you just said, that self-deprecating humor. That's punching at the mirror. And so it's same thing. It's like, I'm going to punch at me first before I punch at anybody else. I'm not going to punch down ever. I may punch up because that's fine, kind of thing. I don't mind poking at people that are doing kind of thing. So, but it's still a matter of, you are funny. You're just funny in a different way than all of us are. And that's part of the reason why we're all cool little human beings, is that everybody's so different.
It's a little like a muscle that you need to
Mm-hmm.
exercise, maybe.
I'll work on that with you, Katie. I'll become more funny.
Yeah. You can work on it with me too. If you ever wanted to practice some material, or if you, or Lisa, here's what you can do. If you're like, hey, can you just help me spice this up? I just want to use it, kind of thing. Because honestly, the more you practice it in a setting where nobody's like sitting there going, it doesn't work. Like, I'm not telling you go to open mic, because everybody there is judging. They are judging you.
Yes.
But there are other places that you can go, okay, I'm going to practice this. And
I
for
have
this
to
setting-
tell you, still to this day, one of the most fun things I ever did was Stevie Ray's improv.
Yeah.
Improv. I did that class.
I will always say, for corporate people, go do improv, because improv is different than stand-up. Improv is, to be good at improv, you need to be good at reading people and handing off the baton to a partner. And improv is also great at learning how to critically listen. Because if you're spending so much time going, I'm going to say this next, versus going, what can I do to build this scene? You're no fun to play with. Exactly. You're no fun to play with if you're always going, I already know what I'm going to say. I already know how I'm going to respond. I already know. If you're that rigid, terrible at improv. Not funny. You can be the funniest person in the world. You can go do stand-up that way. If you have to completely control the outcome, it won't be good for you. But improv is good for that. It's good for learning to play well with others. And then I'll tie this back into what Katie was going to ask me about my kiddo. It actually helped me, whenever I take an improv class, it helps me remember things about how I'm interacting with my son, who happens to be high supports on the autism spectrum. Because a lot of improv is also being able to read cues in a certain way, in a generalized way, and go, this is probably where this is leading, and to be flexible. And so it reminds me that some of the ways that he processes are not flexible. And so, or it's reading a cue differently, like the way that we read eye contact or body language. He doesn't read it the same way that I would. And so it's me able to step back and kind of go, I like this analogy. It's an old one, where I'm a PC and he's a Mac. So both the operating systems work. They're just different operating systems. And so sometimes you have to figure out how to make it work on a Mac. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is going, what are we doing? Kind of thing. What are we doing today? Where are we at? And so that's where I'm at in the journey with him right now, is that plus he's a teenager, it's just, which is, some days it's the teenager, sometimes it's the I live with a 8-year-old that's got a bunch of testosterone and hormones. Some days it's the autism. Some days it's all of them all mixed together. And you just have to kind of go, all right, well, let's figure out how we're going to try and unspool this.
That's an incredible way to look at it. It reminds me of a story once that someone told about learning they were having a child with Down syndrome. And they were expecting to be taking a trip to France, and they had studied France and had done everything to know about where they were going in France, and they found themselves in Germany.
Right. And there's a variety of those. Like when I heard that one, it was called Welcome to Holland.
That was,
So it was Welcome to Holland, and it is about, and the thing that I like that we've updated now that we know more and the way it works is that it's how long do you rest in that disappointment? Because part of what that story is supposed to tell you is that, yeah, you studied to go to this particular location, and then you ended up in this other location. But if you rest too long in the lack and the disappointment, you miss all of the good stuff of where you're
the
at.
beauty of where
Right.
you are.
And it's like, there's lots of stuff that's really cool about my kid. And if I only was like, well, here's what my expectation was going to be like when I found out I was pregnant, then I miss out on all of the stuff that we get to do every day. And, it also makes you overly focus on the minimizing things about him, because, the way I frame things in my head is that I don't have for sure he's going to do this, that, and the other thing by X age. But I do have I try to put him in the path of a certain amount of safety, security, and information so he can make the best decisions that he's capable of making. And then trying to make it so like whatever his version of autonomy from a safety perspective is, he's able to do. And so I just see myself saying when he's in his 20s, you know what? Kids are really complicated, especially teenagers that are on the spectrum. But you know what? Look, he's got his hobby job or his friends or his this or his program, whatever it is. And it's like that was a time period where it was like, well, that was rough. Because there have been some times that I'm like, well, that was rough. And then we have to figure it out and trying to go, well, what resources do I need now? What support systems do I need now? What do I need to do to make sure that I'm still rested and hydrated so that I can make better decisions or have more patience, when he needs me? And that has been an evolution, over time for me because it's hard and you're tired and you're exhausted.
That has had to have stretched you.
Yeah.
In ways that you don't even know going in, right?
Right.
You can't possibly know it all.
Right. And sometimes I don't catch it until I'm in the midst of it. Like I let myself get into a serious depletion situation in 2019 to the point that I ended up mom sobbing so bad that I had to call 911 because I was worried I was having a stroke or a heart attack. And so I'm like, and in my head, I knew it was an anxiety attack because I have always dealt with anxiety in different ways. But I also know the irony. I voice some spots for stroke and heart attack awareness here in this community. So I'm just like, you can't die from a stroke or heart attack. When you're the ones telling people, well, be careful and do all the stuff. But it was very interesting, the process of how everything goes through your head at the time. And then once I did go and I, let it get to the point, and it's a longer story. I'll tell you the story one day. But when I woke up after I let myself get sedated in the hospital, I'm like, the first thing I need to do is work on our sleep hygiene and to work on figuring out how to no longer consider it a badge of honor that I'm so tired and getting by on 4 hours of sleep and all of these other things that, you could sit there and trick yourself into saying is okay. When it's like, nah, you're slowly murdering yourself, Shannan. You need to stop that. And so I figured out ways to build out space and rearrange my capacity. And it wasn't an overnight process. Like I'm still working on it all the time. I'm just better at releasing things than I used to now, out of necessity. I'm like, hey, I want to be here to support him as long as I can. And so, the statistics about frying and burning out, as caregivers is real. And so you really have to kind of go, well, that means I have to conserve my energy and my strength and take care of myself because it's actually selfish not to, because, he needs me.
Well, as my friend Vicky, who is finishing up her second master's in counseling says, One thing she wants to talk about when she gets going with this, and she's going to be incredible, is that you put your own mask on first before helping anyone else when you're on a plane,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of the same thing. You got to take care of yourself in order to have yourself available to do the other things that you need to do.
And I had to reframe that for myself time and time again because the guilt kicks in. The reality of doing that kicks in where, yeah, there's things you can do for yourself, but there's still stuff that they have to do that's not negotiable, that you have to do for the people that you're caring for and you care about that's not negotiable. So it's very difficult to go, where do I find that capacity and what does that look like? And so for me, a lot of that was even reframing my expectation of what self-care looked like. So my expectation was different than what your expectation might need. Like what I really need to do to feel refueled and those things. It's not those old school Calgon take me aways. The last thing I want to do is just sit up in a tub with the spare time that I have. It's boring. I don't want to sit there. That is boring. But there's other stuff that I can do that does refuel me, like saving that time for something else is important, to me. Is it saving it a little bit of time to go out, to dinner with my girlfriends and not feeling guilty about that, like using his backup care time to go and do something like that is some of the things that I had to stop releasing guilt from because I was like, only use that when you're working. You need to be here. You need to do that. And going, no, it's okay. You're not doing it every night. You're doing it on occasion. And so that kind of thing helped me get to that point of what does your oxygen mask even look like? And allowing myself to go, maybe your oxygen mask is just 15 minutes locked in the bathroom by yourself, kind of thing when you're not going to run off to do whatever the thing is and going, tonight, I let him eat bratwurst, instead of making the big complicated meal that I make. And so that oxygen mask definition is very different for a lot of us. And I think that's fair too, is going, what do you need
What do
right
you
now?
need?
Yeah,
Yes.
right now.
Yes, 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 yes.
And I think a lot of moms
Mhm.
and parents should really listen to what you just said because, you're in the throes of whatever it is.
Right.
And who has the ability when, especially as a mom or as a parent, where you can, it's like the golfer, go back to the golfer. A good golfer can get up halfway past his swing and stop
Yep.
and try it again.
Mhm.
And it's the mom, as a mom, that's really hard to do.
Right. Catching yourself in the midst of I'm about to lose it moment is
Yeah.
hard. And, and sometimes you need to have those lose it moments, but it's like, how can you do it in a way that benefits you? And then it's fine for him to see me sad every once in a while, kind of thing. It's fine for him to see me upset or see like what anger looks like in a healthy way versus always compressing those emotions. But there's still good ways to do it. Like if I flip out and break all the china in the kitchen, that's not helping either of us, making that mess, but me being able to have the energy that if he makes a mess to go, I'm gonna wait you out. You're gonna help me clean this mess up that you made, kind of thing. And I have today to die on this hill, kind of thing. I have put enough time out to wait until you come help me clean up this mess that you made. Or for me, it's even been leaving enough space sometimes to work on things efficiently. Like this summer, we're working on chores. Like I had to carve time out to make sure that we can work on this because it's so much easier, I think, as parents sometimes just to do it for them because it's more work to try and convince them to do it or worry about them doing it wrong or that stuff. So I picked 3 chores. Like you can take the garbage out to the dumpster. You can put your clothes away into the drawers after I fold it, kind of thing. And you can put your own plates in the kitchen. It's not that hard. I mean, the plates in the kitchen one eventually is going to turn into, I will wash them, you put them away. Because he kind of already does that, but he doesn't know that I need to wash them first. Sometimes I'll go in there and I'll see a dish that's not clean, put away. And I'm like, all right, well, good job putting that away. It had crumbs all over it and peanut butter, but cool. That's the start. So that's, it's starting with things that I know that we can achieve so that he can have that sense of completion and stuff too. So, of course, right now, when I go, here, put these in the drawer, he's like, no, put it away. He's like, no. He said no, because it's new. But I'm like, you know what? This summer, I got time to continue on this hill instead of just doing it. Because if I wait to do it until like the the fall, when I'm busy, working and running from thing to another, and I got all the stuff to get done, that's not the time to start this. I got to start it now. And so I had to go, part of my self-care is you putting some of your own stuff away. and it sounds silly, but I will feel better if I go, here's a pile of clothes, go put it in a drawer. And you know how to do it.
Love it. I love it.
I just eat chocolate. Their way.
Oh, and get
Yes.
good chocolate.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Life
So
is
M&Ms are pretty good.
Mm,
life is too short for bad
for bad
chocolate.
chocolate. No, I used to do that, because then you got to eat a whole bag. If you
Yes.
get good chocolate, you're like, oh, I had 3 pieces and I'm
Yes,
satisfied.
and that's enough. I agree. I
Mhm.
used to years ago when I was doing writing before, and I always my tagline used to be, life is, a day without chocolate is a mild tragedy.
That's for sure.
Mhm.
I really think it is. Hey, talk to me about, because I think the pace of your life and all the things you have going on, comedy through chaos.
Oh.
How much of what you're doing is coming through in this project? And tell us about it, because you're coming, depending on when I get this podcast produced and put out there, it might
Mhm.
be right. I'm thinking it's going to be right after your deadline
For my crowdfunding
Or
campaign.
your
So yes,
crowdfunding.
there are still going to be ways for people to support us. It's Comedy Through the Chaos. You can find out information about it by going to my website, Miss Shannan, Shannan with an A. So missshannan.com, or you can look for Comedy Through the Chaos on YouTube. Comedy Through the Chaos is a culmination of live performances and artist interviews about complicated subjects that all of the people that I talk to use humor to help navigate things. So you'll be able to see clips of them performing a story or a stand-up routine about different subject matters, but then we'll talk about the stuff, a lot of things we covered here. So it might be talking about parenting or caregiving or grief or finances. And it's not that we're saying, oh, it wasn't hard because I was able to make a joke about it. It's more of, hey, I lived through this and it's okay that you're living through it too. I just processed it faster because it turned it into a joke, is what it is. And so Comedy Through the Chaos, it's a series of live performances that we do with a rotating cast of stand-up performers and storytellers. And then the series is going to be those clips along with sit-down interviews I do with them, and then subject matter experts that also are helping us navigate these subjects. And so you're going to be able to find it on YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, and hopefully, eventually, if the conversations continue, on all of your Plutos and Tubies of the world as well.
Awesome. Lisa, it's something for you to aspire to.
Mhm.
What? Oh, yeah, right.
Lisa,
In
here's
your
what I'm
new
going to tell
humor
you.
campaign.
Here's what I'm going to do, Lisa. So I'm going to make sure that you and Katie have tickets to one of our next shows here in person. And then you'll see what I'm saying about it's 3 minutes of your life. It's 5 minutes of your life. It's 10
Oh, no,
minutes of
don't
your
you
life.
dare get me up there.
Oh, but here's the difference. I'm not making you because, first of all, I never make anybody do stand-up or keynotes or event MC stuff. There's lots of reasons why people don't like doing it. And if I made everybody who hated it do it, I wouldn't have a job. So that's fine. If you don't like doing it, that's why people will pay me to do it. So no, you don't have to do it. But what I do think about you, especially coming to this show, is that you'll see what I mean about how we navigate that pinwheel of emotions and how there'll be parts of the stories that may not be hilarious, but it gets to the hilarity of it. And then you'll be able to see what I meant about the comparison of the two things. So
Plus, it'll
I'm
be
gonna
a
invite you to
date.
the
We
show.
can have a date.
We can have a date, the
We'll
two
have
of us.
dates.
You'll
I
love it.
The
You'll
funny
love
thing,
it.
Shannon, is the interesting thing, and Katie's heard
Yeah.
this before, but being a wardrobe consultant, I've done for 44 years, okay?
Right.
My favorite thing to do is do the corporate speaking for corporations and do the seminars.
Yeah.
I can speak to 300 people about what I know,
Right.
and she's seen it. I do not get nervous for a second.
Right.
But
And she's funny when she does it.
Yes.
But like if I'm not in my space
right.
of what I know, then I would get nervous.
Go back to
Understandable.
Go back to some of the very first podcasts we did. In your spare time, if you really want to get a laugh.
I sound like a robot.
I mean, we all get nervous.
Okay,
I'm going to come help you. Yeah.
She didn't know it. I love it. We got an appearance.
Yes, yeah, my kiddo came in, so I have to
All
go
right.
and help the parent in a little bit. But no, but back to what you're saying, we all get nervous, Lisa, and it's
No,
all
I
nerve.
no, I
I
know.
get
Nervous is good. Nervous
yeah,
is good.
exactly, and I get nervous too. I just show nervous different. But if you don't nervous, there's no joy and there's no excitement. It's like putting a little you got to put some spices in your food every
Oh
once in
yeah,
a while.
no,
Yeah.
I get nervous,
And this
but
one
I
can be
love it.
spicy.
Yeah,
She
spice
can
is
be
good.
spicy.
Yeah, I
I'm a
can
flat out
Spicy.
I
Listen,
can.
I'm a habanero. Here we go.
Yeah.
in the few minutes we have left, I have said this. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but I really believe that you can put people into two buckets. You can break them down to two buckets. Those who have a spirit of abundance or those who have a spirit of scarcity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you, Miss Shannan Paul, have a spirit of abundance.
Thank
It
you.
is so evident in everything that you do. And
It's a big bucket.
it's
too.
a big bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so much, and that just says there's room for everyone and there's room for more.
Right.
And that yes, it's just beautiful. And I want to flip into, before we have to say goodbye, our nonprofit spotlight, which you are on the board of Pacer Center.
I am. Thank you for bringing them up. So at Pacer, we champion families with children with disabilities. That's all disabilities. They have a number of coaches that can help you navigate your individualized education plan, your IEPs, your 504 plans. If you're just going, hey, I'm starting this journey and I don't know what resources are available, they can help you hub out into other things that can support you that way. And it's just a really great place to have it be a first call. If you're going through something as a family that has a need of resources, it at least is some place to start. Because sometimes you're just like, you know what, I've been up all night. I feel like I'm the only one that's dealing with this and it's really hard. At least if you make a call to Pacer, they might be able to go, hey, here's some resources, here's where you start, and that'll get you on the journey.
And that is pacer.org. And this is no cost
Right.
to Minnesota families.
Right.
This is, yes, of children with disabilities, birth to 26, I think it is.
And they can help you with things like if your kid they have a technology center. So if you're like, hey, they could benefit from that. If it's, I don't know how to navigate this particular form of paperwork, they can help put you in touch with people that can help you do all of those out. And just help you be a better advocate as a parent with a kid that has any variety of disability or special needs. And that helps a lot because a lot of what we're doing is being our best advocate for our kiddos. And sometimes you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And at least this way you go, okay, I got a first call.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do and who you are and for sharing time with us. If people want to get a hold of you, I know you gave your info before, but give us, and especially corporate speaking, there's just so much.
Oh, the easiest way to find me, you go to missshannan.com. That's MISSSHANNAN.com. That's a great place to start. It has all of my information there. It tells you how to get in contact with me if you want to see a little bit more of what I do. It has a bunch of the videos about me emceeing things or information on my keynotes. Also, if you just want to see some of the stuff about me hanging out with my kiddo and some of the social media posts that I do, you can find me on all of the places. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and TikTok. Pretty much if you just look for @Miss Shannan, that's MISSSSHANNAN, again, Shannan with an A, you can find me on most of the places. So wherever you are, you can go ahead and find me that way. I'm also, some of the long form writing that I do is on my Substack. But again, all that is connected through my website.
Thank you so much. And as we talk about, we're on theviewinyourmirror.com, but we talk about all the time that we are our own unique individual us. And it's about putting our best foot forward when we look in that mirror and we say, we like what we see because we are the only one of us.
Right.
And you have modeled that and taught us and brought that to us so beautifully. And so we say until next time.
Thank you.